Well, it certainly should become part of the equation, but I think we have to look at this more broadly. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, what causes more harm, the drug or the policy? And in our view, it's the policy that causes the most harm. Every year we criminalise anywhere between 60 to 80,000 people for possession of drugs, for personal use of drugs. That's primarily driven by cannabis, with 70% of that number associated with cannabis possession. And the damage that that does is really quite significant for individuals. It affects their employment, their education, and other things that we would take for granted, like travelling to other countries. What's really important to remember is that this can have real impact on an individual. And a research piece from Essex found that 19% of the lifetime income of an individual, that if an individual has a cannabis conviction or criminal record, will reduce their lifetime earnings by 19%.
Okay, so you're talking the Norman Lamb line, which is basically don't put a potentially dangerous product in the hands of criminals. If I can turn to Kevin Sabet, and you've overseen what's happened in Colorado and in Washington, where they've legalised cannabis for the last, year, 18 months or so now. Are those states the richer for it? What's the lesson?
Well, there's certainly a group making a lot of money. It happens to be the industry, and we actually call them Big Tobacco 2.0. The small group of people who really are getting rich off of addiction and infiltrating special interest groups, advertising things like cannabis gummy bears, lollipops, and candy bars, and targeted towards kids. Because you're having a story later, I heard, about developmental disorders. Cannabis is a developmental disorder, also cannabis use for young people. And if you're in the industry, you have to get people young. Let me tell you, there are no new schools or new hospitals or new parks constructed because of all this so-called tax revenue. In fact, we have all this tax revenue for alcohol and tobacco, as you do in the UK. I'm waiting for there to be treatment on demand. I'm waiting for the schools to be constructed. They're not there.
It does seem very funny for you to be arguing essentially for more big corporations to take care of these drugs in the same way that big tobacco or alcohol does.
Well, firstly, that's not
well,
what
it's
we're
unbelievable.
arguing.
The interest
Sorry,
groups
Kevin.
are the interest. Well, that is the reality. And,
sorry, one second, Kevin. Let me just go back to Niamh. Yeah, sure. One point.
Sure. I mean, that's not what we're arguing for. We're not calling for a super commercialized model.
But that's what's going to happen. You
regulatory control. I don't think so. If we look at tobacco, for example, tobacco's a really good industry where we've evidenced how public health interventions can fundamentally change levels of use. So 30 years ago, 1 in 3 adults in the UK smoked. That's now down to 1 in 20,
and
less than 1 in 20.
We've just heard it's flatlining.
But the problem is that when we have a market that's controlled by criminals, we have no control over that market.
Kevin,
we can't do the effective public health interventions.
That has happened in, well, I'm not going to speak over her, but that has happened in tobacco because we've become more anti-tobacco, not more pro-tobacco. So tobacco's been legal for a century. It's not all of a sudden going down because we've realized it's legal. It's going down because of the stigma associated with tobacco.
If you legalise something, is there ever confirmation that that product becomes less popular?
Well, I'm not sure, because you're not going to legalize it for 15-year-olds. So you're still, unless Niamh wants to do that, I don't think so.
No,
you're still going to have 21. Of course you don't. Absolutely. And I agree that you don't. I'm glad you don't. But that means that it will still be illegal for those under 21. So if you're trying to get rid of forbidden fruit and make it cheap to, you know, the black market is thriving in Colorado. Let me tell you, it is thriving there in Colorado because demand has soared and the legal industry is taxed because we're so-called wanting to get revenue. So the black market is there to undercut the legal market, just as they are with cigarettes, in fact, in your country and in mine.
So why, if something is flatlining, if it's growing less popular, what would be the point of legalising it? Niamh?
Well, the point at the moment is, Kevin brings up the point about age. You mean, at the minute, any young person can buy cannabis from a dealer. The only ID they need is a £10 note. We can't do anything to change that. The point is, we've handed this market over to criminals. There's no way we can do things like age control, purity controls. There's no way we can reduce the harm associated with drugs.
How's that working out for tobacco and alcohol? When we look at the binge drinking rates
is we
in
cannot,
the UK, when you look at the alcohol rates in the UK.
Let Niamh answer that then.
Kevin's arguing for the status quo. He is arguing for a drug that he believes is harmful to be in the hands of criminals. That's what he's arguing for. What we are arguing for is a policy that will pursue public health responses, that will make sure people are safe. You mean, again, back to tobacco.
We're in agreement there, because I want public health responses
raised
as well.
the minimum age for tobacco use from 16 to 18.
Oh, that's
we
true.
saw the level of young people's use drop
absolutely,
from
that's
24%
true. But the point
to
is,
17%.
when it's prohibited,
we can do that when it is.
We can, but when it's prohibited, less people use it. And the bottom line is, in the UK, there's been incredible success no one's talking about over the last 10 years of the reduction of drug-related deaths, the reduction of all drug use, especially cannabis.
We have one of the highest rates of drug-related death, and actually the most recent statistics are the highest on record.
I'm so sorry,
Kevin.
We've run out
your
of time.
statistics are wrong.
Take Thank you both very much indeed.
Well,
We've run out of
so much
time,
for
but
having me.
appreciate your time.
Appreciate
Thank
you.